What's going on, everybody? This is Talking Dirty. I am David Schiele. That is the lovely MiAsia Symone there. We've been going for a little bit. MiAsia, I know you were out of town. I was out of town myself. Tell everybody what you've been up to. I think you was on a little bit of a tour out here having fun.
Well, it was my cousin's birthday, so we were actually just down there celebrating. We surprised him. He didn't know that we were throwing him a party down there. He thought that maybe we were just all taking a family trip and we were just going to spend time together, but it was actually his party. So happy birthday to my cousin Bird. We had so much fun. It was a little scary because we were in Orlando, and of course the coronavirus COVID-19 cases in Orlando are a little bit high, higher than usual, and I think they're ranked in top 5 in the country of cases. So it was one of those things where we weren't really trying to be out. We wanted to kind of quarantine and still stay in the house, so we rented like a 11-bedroom house, and it was more than enough entertainment. It had a pool on the back, and we just kind of spent that time together.
Honestly, my family kind of did the same thing. Like, I can't get mad at that because we went to Orange Beach, Alabama, which was on the border of Florida for my mom's birthday.
Okay.
So we rented out like this condo that slept 10 people.
Wow.
So we had to do something similar. So I totally get it. And then you just isolate in that area as much as you can.
What else have you been up to? What's new?
Well, out here working in Tennessee, things are a little bit different, obviously. Like, we don't have as many cases as other states, although it's kind of been on the rise. The numbers have gone up. But our governor here did give an exemption to allow contact sports at noon. So at first, there was a whole hybrid plan that high school football wasn't going to start until September.
Okay.
So actually now we're going straight in. We're just diving head first, and we're going to straight into the season like it's normal.
Wow.
So teams are allowed to go back to practice starting next week. The first games are set for, I believe, August 21st, and then the championship games will take place in early December. So there's that, and also the SEC decided on the conference schedule in college football. So I'm off today, so I'm not having to cover that. I'm cool. I covered the whole high school exemption thing. I'm off today, so I'm not worried about that now. But yeah, that's the latest of what we got going on in Tennessee.
All right. So did you hear about the fact that they're putting like face shields, like COVID-19? They're creating a mask inside of the helmet. Did you hear that? That's what they're doing for the season?
No, I had no idea about that. Who said that? Who reported that?
So, according to, his name is Oakley. He's actually, he's the one who created it. I don't know the actual, hold on, let's see. I know it's in my notes here.
Okay.
So the helmet, you know how most players, I think they said it was over 700 players who play with a visor. So instead of a visor, they're going to put a mask, and it's clear. And I wish I could put a picture up.
Wow.
Because it's clear and it has holes in it so that you can breathe, but it's not allowing like any drops of water or anything to come in.
I was just looking at it on NFL.com.
Yeah. I honestly don't think that. I don't agree with it because I know how it feels to wear an N95 mask or just a mask in general, and it's really hard to breathe in it. Like, and I can only imagine like running and working out and moving and sweating, and you kind of feel restricted. So it's not that material, it's more of a plastic material. But I just think anything in the way of your breathing, your normal breathing trap, I just feel like it's definitely going to be restrictive. And I know that his name is Oakley. His last name is Oakley, but he created them. He came up with this and thought that this would be the best way to keep everybody safe from spreading the virus to each other. And obviously, of course, they have to be tested before they just get out there. But if there was a case where someone contracted it, it would be less possible to get it if you had this mask inside of your helmet.
I mean, it makes sense. They're just trying to keep everybody safe. I guess we'll have to see the effectiveness of it. But as I'm looking at it, it looks like it's a plastic thing with a bunch of holes in it. So we'll see how effective it is. And if the players are really bothered by it, then maybe they'll have to we'll just go back to regular face masks. Because there's no, hockey isn't doing anything like that on the ice. In baseball, as far as I know, in the games I've seen, nobody had on any type of plastic covering or anything guarding their mouths or noses while playing. So this is the only situation I'm hearing of that.
Yeah, and I mean, I strongly just disagree with, because I feel like it's one of those things where if we're gonna do it, I know they're like, hey, if we're gonna do this, we need to do it the right way. We need to take necessary precautions and make sure that everyone's safe. But I just honestly feel like it's too much. I mean, coronavirus, I think it's like more of a respiratory infection type of thing. So, but when you're sweating and you're touching people and your bodies are rubbing against each other, it's like, how are you really avoiding anything? You know, like right. People get...
You can't avoid that. It's football.
You can't. It's a contact sport. There's no way possible that you could avoid catching it if someone had it. If you just had... I don't think that it's going to be effective enough. That's just me. I don't agree with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's my whole thing, is seeing how effective it is. Players are still catching it at different training camps. You know, how do you keep a bubble?
Exactly.
How do you create a safe enough bubble? The NHL has done a good job. No one's testing positive there. The WNBA and the NBA both have 0 negative tests or 0 positive tests out of their players and coaches. So, but they were able to create bubbles. I don't know how you do that with the NFL. I honestly don't. So, we'll see. We'll see how effective it is.
Yes. In other news, the top 100, the NFL top 100 list was released. I know you were I knew, like, once it came out, you would be the ones that were really, really excited about it. One of the ones. And before we go into that, I do want to talk about the fact that a lot of Dan Quinn made a statement, and he said there are a number of Falcons who are in fantastic shape right now. And I think it's really, really looking good for the Falcons, because he feels more confident than he's ever felt, being that players have been quarantining and they haven't had anything else to do outside of work out.
Right.
Todd Gurley even said that this is the most he's ever worked out in his life. And Alex Mack even upgraded his gym at home as soon as he found out there would be a quarantine. And I mean, we're 45 days away from kickoff from the actual season. So, leading into the top 100, how do you feel about it? I mean, of course, we have Julio ranked at 11, Todd Gurley ranked at 51, Grady Jarrett ranked at 91, and Matt Ryan didn't make the cut. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm upset about it. Like, I'm over here pulling up all these numbers and stats because I'm a numbers guy, because I don't understand how Matt Ryan doesn't make the top 100 list. I mean, you look at it, completion percentage has been over 60%. 60% every year of his career except for one. You look at the last time he's thrown for less than 4,000 yards, that was in 2010. But ever since 2010, he has thrown for at least 4,000 yards, which is really impressive.
Yeah.
So you look at some of the quarterbacks who made the list, namely Josh Allen. A lot of people have brought up, how does Josh Allen make the list? And quite honestly, I don't know, because here's this. Matt Ryan, although Matt Ryan was the most sacked quarterback in the league, he took 48 sacks. That's the most that nobody was sacked more than him last year. He was still top 5 in yards. He was still top 10 in completion percentage. And when you look at quarterback rating, he was still in the top 15 in quarterback rating. And if you look at those exact same categories, Josh Allen is 24th in quarterback rating. You go to yards, and he is somewhere down here, irrelevant, 23rd in yards. Completion percentage, how about this? Last, 32. He had the worst. And so I'm not saying he's necessarily a bad player. If you want to say he's top 100, fine. But for the players to intentionally or unintentionally leave Matt Ryan off, it's just the disrespect that we've seen. It's consistent with the disrespect that Matt Ryan's had ever since becoming the franchise quarterback of the Falcons. It's been this way since he was drafted back in 2008. It's always been, well, he doesn't do this. Well, he doesn't do this. Well, and as he would do those things, then they always find something else to say he doesn't do. So the only slight you could really have on him right now is, hey, sometimes he throws really bad interceptions. And that's been the one thing that's been his crutch since college, is sometimes throwing interceptions. Like, what were you looking at, honestly? You know,
would you say on a team? Okay, so who, hypothetically speaking, who's the worst team in the NFL?
Right now, I mean, it's a new league, so it's a little bit different. But I probably have to go with either the Dolphins or the. Well, I'd say the Bengals are better, but I probably have to go with the Dolphins right now.
Okay, so with the Dolphins quarterback, which is
right.
Yes,
it's Tua Tagovailoa out of Alabama now.
Right. So, do you feel that he's a better quarterback than Matt Ryan? Because I just kind of want to know. I think my reason for asking this question is when it comes to the ranking of quarterbacks or the ranking of players, what piece of information was missing, and what piece of information was so bad that made them feel like, hey, he's not a top 100 player. And so I'm just trying to. Maybe I'm thinking, okay, if the worst team in the world, the worst team right now, this year or prior to this season. If that quarterback, if you think that quarterback is better than Matt Ryan, is that an argument? Is that something that we can say, or is that a way to gauge it?
I say one thing that's I think the most unfair thing that people do when trying to judge quarterbacks is base it on whether or not their team wins games. Okay. Because people always harp on football being a team game. It takes all 11 players. All on both sides of the ball, so basically all 22. But then they throw in special teams, so offense, defense, special teams. It takes all three phases to win a football game. But if a team loses, it's all the quarterback's fault. I think the most irrelevant, the dumbest, and the most insane stat that people try to use in any argument about football is the quarterback record. Because if you, the quarterback, play your butt off.
Right.
You don't throw any interceptions. Hey, let's say you don't throw any incompletions. You threw 5 touchdowns. You converted every third down. However, the other team had the same thing. The only thing that was in their favor instead of yours was they got the ball last.
Right.
And let's say that, so Team B drive down the field and they kick a field goal as time expires to win the game. That game is not on you.
Right.
As the quarterback.
Right.
The defense did not do its job of stopping the opposing offense. Exactly. However, people say, well, that's a loss for the quarterback. It's a quarterback loss.
And see, and I highly disagree with that. It's so crazy because it's like how you said in the beginning, if we're winning, we won as a team. But if we lose, we lost because it's the quarterback's fault. If it's a team sport, and if you have, this is my point, Matt Ryan is not on the top 100 list, but his wide receiver, you have Julio, who is ranked 11. So you mean to tell me that Julio and Matt Ryan or the margins are so that wide that it almost seems as if, I guess, this, statistically speaking, and how the list is lined up, it almost seems as if they should not be on the same team, and that they have no. This is saying they have no chemistry. This is saying that Julio's out there by himself. That's saying that it's not making any sense to put Julio at 11 and to not even rank Matt Ryan. So, I mean, regardless of wins or losses, I just feel like if you're going to put 3 of the Falcons on the top 100, Matt Ryan has to go in there somewhere.
Yeah, he does, and it's Matt Ryan doesn't really care about the accolades that he has as an individual. He just wants to win a championship. That's his biggest thing. So I know he did not lose any sleep over this. But I think as fans and people who care about Matt Ryan and care about the Falcons, we know how good he actually is.
Right.
You look at situations where it's not necessarily has to do something spectacular like Michael Vick did. I think people get so blinded by how fantastical Michael Vick would be. Right. He would do all these Houdini acts and escape sacks, and I get it. Matt Ryan doesn't do that. That's not his style of play. Right. That does not make him the lesser quarterback. Because people who say, well, Michael Vick was better than Matt Ryan. Well, how many things did Michael Vick actually do in Atlanta? Don't look at plays that were exciting.
Right.
But look at the level of leadership and consistency over a course of a season. There were throws. I remember watching an old game where Vick was the starting quarterback, and I believe it was 2005. And legit, the throws he was missing were throws where if Matt Ryan had made that throw, it's like that would have been caught. It would have been accurate.
Right.
And it's not just a thing where, it's because he has, and people always say it's because he has Julio Jones, as if that's the only man he throws to. In 2016, Matt Ryan set a record for touchdown passes to different receivers. 13 different people caught a touchdown from Matt Ryan in 2016.
Exactly.
So he spreads the ball. So that whole argument is it's not true. He had more than Julio Jones. He had Calvin Ridley, Austin Hooper, Mohamed Sanu before he was traded. He also throws to his running backs. So you can't go with this whole argument.
Right.
Of it's because he has Julio Jones that Matt Ryan is good. Mm-hmm. Matt Ryan was good before Julio was in Atlanta.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you don't get to where you are for no reason. Like, I don't think that, Arthur Blank or anyone else would approve of him as a quarterback if he was not I'm not going to say if he wasn't a ranked player, but he has a lot of responsibility. He's in a major city. He's in one of the toughest teams in NFC South. And it's just like, I don't feel like if he wasn't trusted to be a quarterback in this division, I don't feel he would be there, and that's just one of those things where this is going to be an argument and this is something that's going to go on for a while. So, Matt Ryan, congratulations. In my book, you made the list. So I just hope and pray that, even if you aren't losing sleep over this, you realize and understand your worth, and we appreciate your hard work out there.
Absolutely. But he made the all-decade team. We'll give him that.
Okay.
So the Atlanta Falcons released their all-decade team, so 2010 through 2019.
Yes. And
created this fantasy roster. But the funny thing is, a lot of these guys played together. So it's not even that much of a fantasy roster. It's more of like, at one point, all of these brothers were on the same team. So Matt Ryan is obviously the quarterback. That's a unanimous vote. Nobody else was the starting quarterback in that time. Somebody else might have started. But Matt Ryan, in fact, actually in this span, 2010 to 2019, Matt Ryan only missed one game due to injury. That was it, and that was this past season. So Michael Turner was the running back, 2010 to 2012. Patrick DeMarco is our fullback. Wide receivers, obviously Julio Jones, Roddy White, Tony Gonzalez. All three of those guys played together from 2011 to 2013. The center is Alex Mack. You have Andy Levitri, Justin Blaylock, Jake Matthews, Tyson Clabo as your offensive line. The flex player is Devontae Freeman. He had very good seasons in 2015 and 2016. So that is the offense.
It almost seems like it was two different people choosing top 100 in all decade, right?
It definitely was. Yeah.
It seems like maybe the older, more seasoned vets, like people who are, running this league were the ones who said, hey, this is something that we have to take seriously. It's all decade. It was 10 years. I think that they definitely made better choices with everybody. And I don't necessarily disagree, but I do feel like Devontae Freeman didn't give us exactly what we wanted from him. For him to be so young and fresh, I feel like he could have done a lot better and had better seasons the past years.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. He also ran into troubles with concussions and just the best thing about Devontae Freeman to me was his vision. Mm-hmm. His vision and his quickness, and it was like it was gone after a couple of concussions that he dealt with, which was just unfortunate. And then after that, it was like he fell off. So I really hated to see his career nosedive the way it did, because I honestly believe he was going to be here for a long time, like Ward Dunn, like Michael Turner. But yeah, it's unfortunate what his career did, and he's not signed anybody right now either. He has not been signed. He's still a free agent.
The defensive team, you have John Abraham, Vic Beasley, Grady Jarrett, linebacker Deion Jones, Curtis Lofton, Sean Weatherspoon, Desmond Trufant, Robert Alford, William Moore, Ricardo Allen, Brent Grimes, and I missed somebody.
Jonathan Babineau.
Yes. How do you feel about that?
No, this is a good list. I think people were a little bit upset about Vic Beasley being on there because his production literally peaked one year and then just nosedived almost immediately. But he's the best out of that group. After John Abraham after the Falcons let John Abraham walk.
Right.
Honestly, the Falcons had zero pass rush at all.
Okay.
They couldn't sack the quarterback. They were one of the worst teams in the league at sacking the quarterback until Vic Beasley really took off in 2016. He came to the league in 2015. That was the first pick of the Dan Quinn era. But yeah, it's funny. A lot of people wanted Todd Gurley and not Vic Beasley. And now we have Todd Gurley and Vic Beasley's gone. But he was the best defensive end we had outside of John Abraham. Nobody else lasted long. Nobody else was productive. No one else had a peak.
You know, and honestly, I've heard nothing but complaints in regards to Vic Beasley. Like, even though you're saying he's the best we had, it's almost as if people would have replaced him with anybody, you know, because when he was with the Falcons, everyone was literally complaining about, like, saying, you know, he's too big and he's too strong and he's too this and that to play and perform the way that he does. And, you know, and I guess, I don't know if we should mention this now, but he's even still, he's causing controversy on the Falcons without even being there. You know, Tuesday afternoon, he's a first round pick. He was designated to the Tennessee Titans, and of course you would know that, but he didn't report. And so that can cost the Falcons, of course, if you don't report, then that can cost, you know, the draft pick for 2021. And I just feel, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the good thing is he did report, as I think he reported today.
Oh, he did today?
And some reports that like just came out said, I believe it was a death in the family.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the bad thing was, it wasn't just a no-show. It was what they used to say at work, no call, no show.
No call, no show. Okay.
Yeah, it's one thing because sometimes you will be a no-show, but they said he will. Okay, the report says that he will report in the near future. The general manager of the Titans has been in contact with Vic Beasley. He'll be reporting soon, but he missed the first 2 days. Didn't contact the team. And one of the reports I did see on Twitter from someone I'm connected with that also does sports broadcasting here in Tennessee, that one of her sources said and that is why he was gone. But as a professional, you should contact your employer and say, I cannot come to camp. But I think one of the most damaging things that I saw was yesterday that one reporter was tweeting how they had heard from, and of course he got the person anonymous, but there was one manager, coach, or whatever that was texting and saying, yeah, there's questions about whether or not Vic Beasley loves football. Does he even like playing football? Right. And that's kind of unfortunate. You don't want to have somebody on your team who doesn't like playing football.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
so, that's not good.
Yeah, and then the first 5 years he signed for $27 million, and then you get a fully guaranteed deal with the Titans, $9.5 million, starting out. And the question was, did he not report before, of course, today? Did he not report because he was trying to avoid being a bust? So they're thinking like, hey, he needs a fresh start, leaving the Falcons, but maybe he couldn't handle the pressure, or maybe he doesn't feel like he's, like you said, either one, he doesn't like the sport enough, or two, he doesn't feel like he's, due to all the complaints that I mentioned earlier, maybe he doesn't feel like he's good enough to stand, because it would really expose what type of player he is, being that now he's out of one program and on to the next. Yeah,
and that's, I think he needed a change of scenery, but honestly, I'm glad he's gone. I used to defend Vic Beasley passionately. I was one of those people who defended him passionately, and I was ready to die on that hill of he is our pass rusher. We did not need Todd Gurley at the time. Said we have a running back. Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman are our running backs, and they are doing that. That duo is so lethal that there was no need for Todd Gurley. So on the reverse side, we needed a pass rusher. That's where Vic Beasley comes in.
Exactly.
Vic Beasley was racking up sacks, led the league in sacks. And so, yeah, I was ready to die on that hill saying the Falcons needed Vic Beasley, and he immediately let me down. Immediately. So, yeah, it was, it was disappointing. Everybody else, I agree with. So, I really like Desmond Trufant and Robert Alford on the team, on the All-Decade team. But I really, really enjoyed the addition of Brent Grimes because he was like a spark plug. He wasn't the tallest guy. He was like 5'9", he was out of Shippensburg. People don't even know where that is. Honestly, I don't know where it is, but I just remember the name. He was out of Shippensburg. And he could jump out of the building. The guy had hops. He was so good. He was a great corner in my eyes, and as I was going through high school. And he just made plays. But I think it was week 1 of 2012, he tore his Achilles, and that was it. And then he was just gone.
Worst injuries ever. Like, just the thought of it is so cringeworthy. Like, your Achilles, like, you have to get up and walk every day. You have to use the restroom. You have to make something to eat. You have to, like, that's just detrimental. Ugh.
Yeah. So, but I like the addition of him in there. Ricardo Allen, I agree with that one. William Moore, I think it's a tough decision to leave Keanu Neal off, but you look at it, Keanu Neal missed the 2018 and the 2019 seasons, one with torn ACL and the other with torn Achilles. So William Moore, although he wasn't perfect, but he hit hard, he made plays, and he definitely had more interceptions than Keanu Neal. The thing about Keanu Neal is, like, he can't catch.
Yeah.
William Moore was able to intercept passes. He was pretty good at that. So, yeah, I like this. And then special teams, it was obvious. I mean, there's only a couple people that have been on special teams for past decade. Matt Bosher, punter, Matt Bryant, the kicker, all the clutch kicks he had. You can look just at that 2010 season. Based off of just 2010, Matt Bryant's case would be strong just off of that one right there. Your return man is Devin Hester, even though he was only in Atlanta for a few years. And then Josh Harris is your long snapper. Eric Weems is your other thing. But nobody has had a kick return touchdown since Eric Weems. It has just flat out not happened. And that his last one that I can think of, it was in 2010. It was in 2010, and he took two of them. He took one back against the Packers in the playoffs, and another one a few weeks before that against Tampa Bay on the road. And those were two pretty exciting ones. The one against the Packers had me screaming at the top of my lungs. So in the playoffs, I thought we were going to win. I was like, who has a kick return touchdown in a game and loses? Atlanta does.
Actually go to that game?
No. At this point, I was living in Indiana.
Okay. I would love to go to more Falcons games. And, I don't know about this season if I'm going to be able to withstand the thought of being, exposed to COVID-19 and being, regardless of how many masks we put on, how many vitamins we take. I don't know if I'm ready to be exposed to a crowd like that. So we'll see. Players
don't win when you in the building anyway.
You always say that.
Because it's true. Yeah. You've never seen the Falcons win in person.
I've never seen the Falcons win in person.
Then stay away.
It's not me.
They run together.
Wow. Anyway.
You can say it's not you, but every time you go, Atlanta loses.
No, it's just that I choose the wrong games to go to. That's what it is.
Every game you go to is going to be the wrong one. That's the problem.
That's so silly. Oh, goodness. Well, we definitely have to get out of here. Before we go, I want you to understand that players still have the opportunity to opt out due to COVID-19. And there are lots of players who have stepped back and said, hey, you know what? I'm either going to take care of my family or I'm going to use this time to work out, relax. I don't want to risk, getting exposure or giving it to someone else. If a player is considered to be a high-risk virus, they will receive a $350,000 stipend. And players who are considered to be high risk but still want to opt out because they feel uncomfortable can receive $150,000. So I just feel like we still don't know exactly how, we're 45 days away. A lot can change. We still don't know who's actually playing and who's not, being that this option is still out there. A lot of players may decide at the last minute, like, hey, no, I don't think we can handle large crowds. Or, of course you have wives and children at home and you're thinking of, you're trying not to be selfish in this instant. There are definitely a lot of players who are still taking that risk, knowing that, hey, bills have to be paid. I have these responsibilities. What are your thoughts on that before we leave?
I mean, if that's what a player chooses to do, then, they're grown men, and they're not just for our entertainment. I kind of spoke about this a little bit earlier where, hey, they're human beings, first of all. What they do for a living is entertaining to us, but they're still people. So if a player chooses that's best for him and his family, his children, his wife, to not play and risk bringing something home, then don't play.
I don't know if you'll like what I'm about to say, but this is how I strongly feel. I strongly feel that at the rate that we're going, there shouldn't be an NFL season. I don't think that is safe. Like left and right, I feel like we've been saying RIP to so many people. People have been losing their lives. And if there's no real way to keep this virus at a minimum, then I don't feel that it should be open to the public, number one, if you're going to do it. And two, I just don't feel with all the contact, it's the sport that has the most contact outside of like hockey. And hockey still doesn't have nearly as much contact as football. Yes, they do. But like how NBA created a bubble, if the NFL cannot create a bubble and you can't just like choose, hey, like NBA was able to choose 22 teams and say, hey, we're going to roll with these 22 teams in Orlando. No one can come in or out. But with the NFL, it's almost impossible to do that. So I just think if it's not safe, that it shouldn't be a season because there's no real way to stop people from catching this virus.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't think it's possible to create a 32 NFL team bubble. The rosters are too big. Right. It's easy in the NBA. It shows 22 teams. There are not a lot of players on each team. The WNBA doesn't have a lot of teams to begin with.
Right.
So it was easy. Same thing with hockey. I think the advantage that the NHL and the NBA had was their regular seasons were mostly completed.
Exactly.
So they could say teams who had no chance to make the playoffs
can
get out. We'll have something to play into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But if you were not going to possibly make the playoffs, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you all for tuning in to episode 6. It's MiAsia Symone and David Deacon Schiele on Talking Dirty.